Welcome to the Chilton Project, folks. Today's project is working on this old girl. Yeah, Datsun 240. I get, listening to the motor, listening to the car, enjoying the car, but I really like to listen to a radio. So, yep. I bought this. This is off of Amazon. It's a real cheap radio. It's just Bluetooth FM, AM, and so that way it's small and it's light. And I think I gave like $20 for it. But the reason that I gave $20 for it is because this fitment for this radio in this den, it's not actually a single den. Alright, here's the Chinesium box that come in. This is, if you've ever installed a radio, you take this plate right here. The radio slides into this way. And you take these little tabs and you bend all these little tabs out. And it grabs a hold of whatever it can find in the dash, and it secures this bit into the dash. And then your radio slides in here and it locks into these little tabs. You'll have little keys to get it out. Well, I knew that I was going to have to be doing some body modification on a piece of electronics. So I bought the cheapest one I can find, and long and behold, if I take that off, this fits in there just right, and it's pretty light. I might have to put something, a little bit of tape or something just to hold it in place, but I think it's gonna stay. So yeah, the goal today is to shoot out these wires, which I think I have them, and solder in some new stuff and get this radio working and put this dash back together. Let's do it. Alright, so real quick before we install this is gonna be basically the same thing for any core radio on the market. Especially an older vehicle, this is exactly how you do it. On an older vehicle, newer vehicles, you can buy adapters to plug into the factory wire harness. Will leave you a bunch of pigtails hanging out, a bunch of wires hanging out, and then you splice those back and splice them into your new wires. So if you're gonna go off of an old vehicle that's not gonna have that, that's what your basic tools you're gonna need. You're gonna need a test light to shoot out ground, hot, and key, which is memory, heat shrink, crack torch, soldering gun, wire strippers, and cutters and crimpers, and some decks, and maybe a light. I don't know why I have that there, and I don't know why I have a screwdriver there. Previous job. And most likely some wire. This is not speaker wire, but I'm probably not going to be running speaker wire because it's already in there. So first things first, we need to shoot out a ground, a consistent hot for the memory, and a hot that comes on with the key to tell the radio to come on. And then after that, we solder those in, then we solder in the speaker wire. So let's do it. Okay, test light. If you're gonna work on vehicles at all, and you have want to work on vehicles, this is a cheap tool that I think everybody should have. It's real simple. It has a light bulb inside of there, and a light bulb needs two things to work. It needs a hot, a positive, or a ground, or negative. So, and what it does is no matter which way you hook this up, it should, as long as you have one or both of those, it should come on. So right now I have the wire hooked to a ground right here, and then this should be a hot, and the light comes on. Now if I reverse it and say I need to find a ground for whatever I'm wiring up, I hook that to a hot. Now I'm looking for a ground, and as soon as I touch a ground, she lights up. Well, right now we know that that's a ground wire, so we've already got that one. So now I need to find a hot, so we can start stabbing around until we find a hot wire somewhere in here. Okay, so after playing around with these wires some, I found a hot right here. With the key off, that hot comes on. Alright. And then I found this hot, which is going to be used to run the blower motor. If I get my camera set up. See, it's off, but it comes on when I turn the key on. So that'll be key, and this wire will be the consistent hot. Alright, so this is one of my hots. I'm going to strip that back some. Actually, there's some tape on it, so let's find out what kind of corrosion's in there. It's just to open the wire. Looks good. So, I'll put a big piece on that. A big piece of heat shrink. I doubt y'all can see because my big fat arm's in the way. So yeah, let me buzz that in. Now I'm not saying that the way I'm doing it is 100% the correct way. I'm not sure of a much better way than what I'm doing other than heat shrink and or soldering in it. I'm not sure if there is a much better way. There may be. I don't know. I'm not the one to say. But I do know that once I started to heat shrink things and solder stuff, I have had a lot less issues with going back and redoing things that I'm doing that I've already wired up. So okay, so I said that I had found this wire, and it comes on with the key, and it's also going to be the same wire I'm going to use to run the blower motor, so I have heat if I do drive when it's cold. And it comes on with the key, so that means that I need 2 wires on it. So when I run these 2 wires, I have to lay these 2 wires together, put heat shrink on the back side so it'll slide over, and these 2 wires will lay down nice and pretty like that, and I'll show you when I'm done. Alright, so I got my 2 leads right here coming off of my 1 key wires, what this is going to be. And I've got my heat shrink back here. I've got 2 tubes of it. Now when it's that big and you get this super hot, like it's almost hot to the touch all the way down here, you gotta be careful because copper is a good conductor, and it'll run that heat up there and it'll shrink your heat shrink prematurely on you. So let that cool off, and then I'll slide the heat shrink over it. Alright, this is what I'm talking about. So I got 1 wire coming in, smaller piece of heat shrink slid up as much as I could over that joint, and then a big piece over top of it. Now that leaves me with 2 leads off of that 1 wire. The fan is pulling quite a bit. That would be my only worry, that if you turn the fan on, it pulls so much juice that the radio actually shuts off. That would be bad, so hopefully that's not the case, but yeah. Okay, so on this radio I've got 2 plugs. I got one that's going to be my power supply and one that's going to be my speakers. Each one of these, the paperwork should tell you, they're all universally pretty much the same, but you've got a hot or a positive and a negative for, left front, green, hot and negative for right front, and so on and so on. And that feeds 4 speakers. I think it's white and gray's front and green and purple's back. And then the power wire here, you'll have this one's got 4 wires. Sometimes you'll have more, but the 3 main that you need is your yellow, which is your memory, and that usually is run to a fuse, and that stays hot all the time. So if the radio ever shorts out, there should be a fuse in this. This block is fused, so it should work out. And then your red is what comes on when you turn your key on, and then black of course goes to ground. And then on this one, I just put a piece of heat shrink to wrap it up and get it out of the way, make it look a little bit neater. It's actually for an antenna, so when you turn the key on, if you have electric antenna, the antenna will pop up. So yeah, now that we've got the consistent hot wire, and then we've got the key wire, now all we need to do is find a ground. And then we only got 2 speakers, and there's the speaker wires. So let's get those hooked up. Alright, so here we go. We got a memory, key, and ground. And I did the same thing with the ground as I did earlier with that hot. Put 2 wires into 1. All this wiring will get tucked back up in there. So that's going to be the power source for the radio. And right here's the speakers, which there's no speakers installed because they're right there. So yeah, let's get these wiring done, and I will show you something else. Okay, every radio is going to come with a diagram in it. It should, if you buy it new. If not, this would probably work for 99% of the radios out there. But right here you got rear left speaker is green, and rear right speaker is violet. So green and violet, just like I said, gray and white was front, so I already knew that. That's what I'm saying. They're all pretty universal, so I need to solder in the green and the violet into these wires, and then I can start putting the dash back together. But before I put it all the way together, I highly recommend giving it a test. Another pro tip, or not waste your time tip, is any speaker wires that you don't use. I have these little tiny pieces of solder that come in these kits that I never use for anything. They're so small. So pro tip, go ahead and put a little piece over top of it, or put some electrical tape, because even though those are cut flush, the little tiny piece of copper in there, if it grounds out to the radio or grounds out to something else, it can cause the whole radio to shut off. And I've chased that around a few times before I figured out that, hey, even though that's just a microscopic piece of wire hanging out of there on the end of it, it's still shorted out. So go ahead and put some waste some heat shrink. If you have some that you never use, or like this itty bitty stuff, or just put a piece of tape over it, roll it back on itself, and put a bigger piece of heat shrink on it, like I did with the blue wire. Yeah, that'll save you some headache in the long run. Alright, so I've got those soldered up to the speaker wires and shoved back in there. So let's plug it in, and then I went ahead and mocked up the speakers back there just so we can hear if they are working. Let's slide this into the dash. Not a lot of places to work here. I mean, that fits just barely. Just lay that in there for now. We'll clean up the wires later. And it's on. Alright, we'll try to get some Bluetooth going here, and then try to find something that that's a radio. Can't play much because copyright issues, but hopefully I can mess with it and figure it out. It's a super cheap radio, but I thought I was gonna have to mod the radio to fit in there, but yeah, I don't think that looks too awful bad in there. Kind of somewhat matching. And then key off. And it's off. Cool. So yeah, that's that. I got a radio on the car here. I don't know if it'll be a very good one. It was a $20 radio. You get what you pay for. But that's basically how you wire up a car stereo in any car, Razor. Even if you're looking for put it on a four-wheeler, anything like that, you need that consistent hot with that test light for your memory. You need something that comes on with a switch or the key to turn the radio on. You need a ground, and then you hook up your speakers respectively to how many speakers you have and where their location is. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, get a test light. Those are worth $1 million in my shop at least. And then I've done a lot of wiring in my short life, and I've found that soldering joints seem to be the best. If you got clean wire, it takes in the solder, it sucks it up. That joint's gonna be good until I don't know when. It's gonna be good forever. I've used butt connectors, I've used a little cheap crimp connectors that has the blades in them. All those, after a little while of vibrating around in a car, they end up going bad. If you buy the really good butt connectors and spend the money to buy the good ones and have a good crimper, I do believe those work pretty good. But outside of those, soldering is still, I believe, better than those. So yeah, I appreciate y'all watching the Chelton Project, and I'll catch you on the next one. God bless.